Welcome to Derry. Episode 2 has dropped early for Halloween, so I'm going to try and break it down as best as I can and try and find some Easter eggs that maybe you missed. Hi guys, my name is Barry and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be talking about episode 2, The Thing in the Dark. After the theatre massacre, they're looking for someone to pin the blame on for the disappearance of the 3 children in the theatre. Now there was lots of blood there and we know that people had died in the theatre, but the bodies are nowhere to be seen, and they're trying to pin the blame on Hank, who is the theatre owner and the father of Ronnie. We're introduced to new characters, and one of them is Chief Clint Bowers, and that name is obviously not a mistake. Clint Bowers is the grandfather of Henry Bowers and obviously the father of Butch Bowers. Clint is being pressured into trying to make Hank the scapegoat for the deaths of the kids in this theatre, and the locals are trying to tell him, yep, you need to pin it on Hank. I think it's obviously a racially motivated thing, but Clint, being Clint Bowers, he wants to try and get this thing cleared up as soon as possible. In order to do that, he takes the only surviving witness that saw things, Lily, and he's using her backstory against her. She was in Juniper Hills before, the mental asylum, and he threatens to put her back there if she doesn't say it was Hank. He doesn't say that outright to her, but he alludes to the fact that if you don't tell us that it was Hank, you're going back to Juniper Hills. Because the characters that we thought were going to be main characters in the first episode all died, then we're reintroduced to new characters in this episode, like young Will Hanlon, who will be the father of Mike Hanlon for Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. He's going to be the main kid, or one of the main kids. We've also got Ronnie and Lily, who are still in it, who survived the episode 1, and we're introduced to Rich as well. So these characters look like they're going to be the main kids in the show. We find out through a visit from It that Ronnie lost her mother through childbirth, and It tries to feed on her fears for that. He blames her for the death of her mother, and a scene that is absolutely terrifying, a scene that you would see in the movies and think, wow, that's amazing. In this scene, it was fantastic. Lily is also targeted by It when she goes to the grocery store, and she's reminded, and we are reminded as an audience, of how her father died. And you see these jars of gherkins and pickles, and he's in some of these jars, and he comes together to try and scare her. Again, it's a horrifying scene, especially for a child. I'm just loving the build-up of these It scenes, because we don't see Pennywise as Pennywise, we just see It as all these different entities, and he's scaring the kids because he wants to build up that fear like he does in It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2. When it comes to the adults, I think this is the most surprising part of the show, because I expected not to like the adult scenes. I prefer the kids battling Pennywise, but in this, it's actually really interesting with Leroy being the main adult. Obviously, his wife is there, Will's mother, and then you've obviously got Dick Hallorann, and they've got this military sub-setting throughout the show, and I'm really interested in it, because what they do is they try and figure out what's happening beneath Derry. They think there's this fear type weapon below the ground, which they're not wrong, and they're going to try and use it as a weapon against their enemies. I think that's really interesting. Some of the things that I noticed in this episode was we've obviously been properly introduced to Dick Hallorann. He definitely has the shine in this show, because he uses his shine to his advantage. He gets special privileges as part of the army, and also he tries to find out where this fear type weapon is. He's the one that's trying to figure out and help the army figure out where this thing is. I've already covered Clint Bowers, but if you didn't know, Clint Bowers is the grandfather of Henry Bowers. And again, we're introduced to Will Hanlon, who is going to be the father of Mike Hanlon and is the son of Leroy Hanlon. That might be a bit of a spoiler, because we know that this kid is not going to die, but what we don't know is what type of experience he's going to have in the show. We get the second-hand Rose and Mr. Keen's store that Charlotte goes to in the episode. That's the same store that we see in It Chapter 2 when Bill goes and purchases the bike. I don't know if you noticed it, but the butcher's name was Stanley Kirsch, and Kirsch is obviously Mr. Kirsch. If you remember in It, that Beverly Marsh thought that the sign said Marsh on the door, but it actually says Kersh. So I wouldn't be surprised if Stanley Kersh is related to Mrs. Kersh. We get another nod to The Shining. You see the Calumet tins on the shelves in the store. It's something that I noticed straight away, and that is something that they used in The Shining. And finally, and the most important Easter egg in this episode is the end of the episode when we see the car getting lifted up that Dick Hallorann has sensed is there, and that is the car from the Bradley gang. When I saw the trailer for the show, I initially thought that car didn't look like a car from 1962. And a lot of people said, well, I think it's a car from when that little boy went missing at the beginning of the episode 1. And I thought, I don't think that's the case. And it's not. It's the Bradley gang vehicle. So that car is from 1935. In the book is 1929, but again, we've shifted the dates to coincide with It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2. And that is the Bradley gang car that was set in 1935. So they're giving us hints of what happened 27 years before 1962. If this season is successful, then we'll probably see more of the Bradley gang shootout. In my previous episode, I did mention that I didn't really like the acting from the kids that died in episode 1, and I was kind of glad that they get killed in episode 1 because there was something about the acting that just felt either it wasn't good enough or it was too much. Whereas the kids that were introduced into this one, especially Will Hanlon, I think the acting from the introduced kids in this one is a lot better, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can get from Will because he looks like a fantastic actor. Going back to the end of the episode though, I'm loving how they ended this episode because we get the Bradley gang vehicle. What does that mean? Are we going to go back in time even before season 2? Are we going to get to see some of that from 1935? Or is it just going to be some things that we see in this episode or in this season, that we're going to try and visualize in our heads, then we will see in season 2. But the fact that Dick Hallorann has managed to find something, then that they know that Dick Hallorann has some sort of shine and he's not lying about it. Overall though, guys, I actually enjoyed this episode more than I did episode 1. Yes, episode 1 ended in a crazy finale, but there's something about the build-up in episode 2 that I really enjoyed. I actually paused it halfway through to go and get a drink, and we were already 33 minutes in, and I thought, 33 minutes already, and I didn't want it to end. It is a show that feels to me, for the first time, I want to binge from episode 1 to episode 8. Unfortunately, we can't do that because it's coming out weekly, but it seems like a show that I really do want to invest myself in, and so far, I'm loving what I'm seeing. What are your thoughts on episode 2, guys? Do you think it was better than episode 1, or not as dramatic as episode 1? And what do you think of the new characters that have now been introduced to this season? Because I'm assuming that the characters that have now come into episode 2, like Little Rich and Will, they're going to be main characters and they're not going to die straight away. They might die later on, but they're certainly not going to die straight away, especially Will, because we know he grows up to be an adult and has a child called Mike. As always, thanks a lot for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you soon.
I'll be right back.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Someone's in the back!